I'm Hannah. I'm a tutor at Sky Academy, and we're looking at the topic of measurement. Specifically, we're looking at rates and ratios, which is MSM7. This is our fourth video in this topic, and we're looking at the fuel consumption rate. So fuel consumption is the number of litres of fuel a vehicle, so it could be a car or a truck, uses to travel 100 kilometres. So if we have a look in this blue box here, it is the fuel consumption formula. So this is where FC, or fuel consumption, equals the amount of fuel in litres times 100 over the distance travelled in kilometres. So essentially, when we're doing fuel consumption rate questions, there's two things you really could be solving. You could be solving A, the fuel consumption, this part here, or B, you could be using the fuel consumption already being solved or already being given to you to calculate the amount of fuel or the distance traveled. So instead of finding the fuel consumption, you're using the fuel consumption to find one of these two. Another thing to note that the fuel consumption formula is not on your reference sheet, and so it is something that you will have to remember. So let's have a look at some questions. So here we have Mitch, who on a full tank of 42 litres can travel 560 kilometres in his car. So we have been asked to calculate the fuel consumption. So the first thing I'm going to do in, let's just say up here, is I'm going to write down the fuel consumption formula. So that is where FC equals the fuel in litres times by 100 over the distance or kilometres travelled. And I'm just going to highlight that so we don't forget it. Okay, now let's have a look. I'm going to sub the information from my question into the formula and find the fuel consumption for question A. So FC for question A is going to equal my fuel, which is 42 in litres, 42 times 100 over the distance or the kilometres travelled. And in this case, it's 560. And when I do that, I should get a fuel consumption of 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres. So you just have to sub that into your calculator and it will come up with 7.5. So my fuel consumption is 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres. So if I travel 100 kilometres, I will use 7.5 litres of petrol. If I travel another 100 kilometres, I'll use another 7.5 litres of petrol. So now for question B and C, we're going to use the fuel consumption we just found to find either the kilometres or the petrol. So let's have a look at B. We'll do it here. We need to calculate the kilometres he can travel with 12 litres. So I'm going to write my fuel consumption formula with information from question B. So I know my FC to equal 7.5. And I'm going to equal the fuel, which is 12 litres in this case, times 100 over the kilometres, which I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find the kilometres. And so to do this, I'm going to get the kilometres by itself. So I'm going to take this numerator across to the other side. So that means I'm going to get 12 times 100 over 7.5 equals my kilometres. And when I put that into my calculator, my kilometres should equal 160. So with 12 litres, I can travel 160 kilometres. Now let's do question C. We need to find the petrol used for 1,530 kilometres. So we know our fuel consumption to be 7.5 we need to calculate the fuel. The fuel is just the petrol. So we don't know what that is. We're going to times it by 100, and we're going to do it over our kilometers, which is 1,530. So now we are going to try to get fuel by itself. So we're going to take this over here and times it. So 7.5 times 1,530 equals 11475 equals fuel times 100. And then to get fuel by itself, I'm going to take my 100 over and divide by 100. So fuel is going to equal 11475 divided by 100, and it's going to leave me with 114.75 litres. So if I travel 1,530 kilometres, I will use 114.75 litres. So let's have a look at the next question. So this question is a common question. It's where Bob is comparing two different cars. And this is very common to ask which car might be better, which car uses less petrol. And I think there's many HSC papers that use this type of question. And I think HSC paper 2017 uses a question like this. But I'm sure there's more as well. So let's have a look. So Bob is comparing two different cars, car X and car Y. Car X uses fuel 9 litres per 100 kilometres, and Y uses fuel at 3.5 litres per 100 kilometres. So if Bob wants to drive 8,000 kilometres next year, which car will use less fuel for Bob and by how much? So let's have a look. I'm going to do my fuel consumption up here. So FC equals my fuel in litres times 100 over distance or kilometres travelled. And now I'm going to do car X. So let me highlight that so we don't get confused. So car X. We have the fuel consumption already, 9 litres. So 9 equals, we're trying to figure out the fuel. So we don't know the fuel, times 100. And our kilometres, he wants to drive 8,000. So to figure out how much fuel we have, I'm going to times by 8,000. And that's going to give me 9 times 8,000 is going to give me 72000. 72,000 equals fuel times 100. I don't have room for that, so I'm going to come down here. So 72000 equals fuel times 100. To get fuel by itself, I'm going to divide by 100. And therefore my fuel is going to be 720. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing, but for car Y, which equals 3.5 fuel consumption, equals fuel times 100 over still the same kilometres, 8,000. So everything's the same except we're just swapping out the fuel consumption for the two different cars. So I'm going to do 3.5 times 8,000 to get fuel times 100. So 3.5 times 8,000 is going to be 28,000 equals fuel times 100. Then I'm going to divide by 100 to get my fuel, which is going to be 280. So for car X, I can travel 720 litres. And with fuel car Y, I can travel 280 litres. So obviously we want car Y, because with 8,000 kilometres, it will only use 280 litres. So that's a lot less than 720. So which car will use less fuel for Bob? Car Y. We'll do it in this box here. Car Y will use less fuel. And by how much? To figure out how much, I'm just going to do the difference between the two. So 720 minus 280, which equals 440 less. By using car Y, I will use 440 litres less than car X.